Hi, and welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy. I'm your host, Steve Bissell. The goal of this podcast is to demystify therapy, what can happen in therapy, and the wide array of conversations you can have in therapy. I also talk to guests about therapy, their experience with therapy, and how psychology is present in many places in their lives. I also share personal stories. So please join me on this journey about therapy. Hi, and welcome to episode 66 of Finding Your Way Through Therapy. I am Steve Bissell. This is also the premiere episode of season 6, so I hope you enjoyed season 5, and then we're already on season 6, which is an amazing thing. I'm getting a returning guest, and then I'll have someone join us that he recommended. So the guest that you know, and you've heard him on episode 32, 43, 54, is Pat Rice. Pat Rice, just a reminder, 73 years old, clean and sober 35 years, practicing psychotherapist, does dual diagnosis, trauma and intervention, grief. And we've talked to him before, so I hope you go back and listen to those episodes. But we are also inviting a new guest, Kerry Keegan. Kerry is an author and pioneer of energy medicine, works as an intuitive astrologer, teacher, metaphysician, and certified quantum biofeedback practitioner. I'm sure that's going to come up. She specializes in multi-species collaboration and higher consciousness realities. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with her. She's going to talk about whales. I have a sneaking suspicion about it, but this is the same author that Pat talked about in episode 54. So I'm hoping that we're able to tie everything together, but here is the interview. Well, hi, and welcome to the premiere episode of season 6. I'm on season 6. Can you believe that? And this is episode 66. But there's a little disappointment in that. There's a coherence in one of the guests' appearances here that I love, and it's going to be YouTube channels episode 13. So this will be found on YouTube. I see people going there a little more than they used to. So please go there to see us. So that way you can see, well, their wonderful face and mine. But I'm very excited because I'm having Pat Rice back. Pat has been on episode 32, 43, 54. And in the last episode, we actually were talking about our other guest here, Kerry Keegan, who had written a book and they had met in Maine and they had recently reconnected. We were talking about a near-death experience. But as soon as I heard Pat talk about Kerry, I'm like, I got to have Kerry on. So welcome, both of you. Welcome, Pat. Welcome, Kerry.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure.
I'm so happy to have you both here because I've known Pat for a long time. And just him talking about you, Kerry, and how you connected in the past and recently reconnected is just something that's great to see in any human being. And I believe in energy. I believe in reconnection. So I thought it was perfect that you guys would be on together and talk a little bit more about different things. But Pat, I know people know you, but if you want to do a quick intro of who you are, go ahead.
Who am I? That's a question I ask myself every day, literally. Well, I know Steve because we're part of a peer supervision network in psychotherapists. And I've been doing that for the better part of 30 some odd years. And working now less with dual diagnosis and things and much more with spirituality and grief and loss and death and dying and all of the stuff that really matters and what's beyond what we see and what we can be easily obsessed with. I would just preface a little introduction with Kerry and I. She and I knew each other many, many years ago. We worked together. We used to swim. Yeah, we were lap swimmers together, which was one of the most special parts of it. And riding many miles to the pool in my old gold Cadillac, as I recall, and I found her through a soul network, soul connection network, or something that's part of spiritual advisors and whatever. And her name popped up, and I, of course, jumped on it and reconnected. And as it generally is, these things happen when they're supposed to. When she's assisting me in taking my heart-centered practice to another dimension where she has been for some time. I'll just not tell her story, but end with the fact that one of the things we both have experienced, she more than I, are near-death experiences, and help others to become really connected to that process as well, and the perspectives that are engendered by it. So I'm thrilled to be here again, Steve. I've really enjoyed these. I'm honored, would be the best way to say that, to have my friend here with me.
Well, a few things that I wanted to say before we go on. Pat, you said something funny right before we started recording. You're like, haven't looked for a job in 36 years. I think that should be on your resume. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
And the truth that the other touching part that people may connect to is that you haven't looked for a job for 36 years. Somehow they always found you. And I think that's a nice thing to say. And I have a feeling that water is going to be a theme today for some reason. Between
I did change my background.
And then I'm thinking,
I had a,
and I'm,
I had a one too, but then I changed it. I was a lot of water.
and then like swimming. I just came back from Newport. I'm a Cancer, and I'm like, we're going to talk about water today. I'm pretty sure. But welcome, Pat, again. Always good to see you. And Kerry, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Steve. It's really fun to be here. I appreciate it. I grew up in Maine, and probably the most pertinent thing about you just mentioned near-death experiences. I had one very early on when I was one through an accident. So when I came back, I was very awake. A lot of people are having their awakenings now, but 60 years ago, I got blown open. And so I was very awake and very aware growing up. And so I learned I didn't know. It was really a challenge. I was really impatient. I'm like, where's my teacher? When are we going to start this process? I was like, came home from kindergarten and cried. I'm like, oh my God, they're still asleep. I didn't have a real teacher. I didn't have an awake teacher, which is really what everyone gave all this hype for kindergarten. And I was like, and I came back and I'm like, oh my God. And I understood on the first day of kindergarten, I was going to have to go through school, go through college, raise my kids before it was time to kind of bring the gifts and actually begin to work with people telepathically or open up our higher sensory perceptions with people. So a lot of my life was trying to fit into a box of normalcy. It didn't work, and I got all sorts of health challenges and accidents. And then I had another near-death experience later in life, at which I had a conversation, and they're like, if you're not going to bring your gifts, might as well come back over here. And I'm like, no, I will go back. I'll go back. I'll blow it away. I'll blow it out of the water. I promise. I wanted to go back. I had 3 children, and I'm like, no, I'll do what I came here to do, and I'll open up multi-species communications, because I already had, and I knew how to do that since a child, and it needed to happen. All of the earth kingdoms and the other species kingdoms were desperately trying to connect with our hearts. And I'm like, okay, I'm on it. So I've been endeavoring to figure out all sorts of ways to bring this to us, to humanity. So that's a little bit about me, my passion. But I live in Scarborough, Maine. I go swimming every day. And yeah, swimming is my thing.
Well, and swimming is important. I mean, basic element of life, if you ask me. But maybe I'll go back to you, Kerry. A little bit of, you talked a bit about your journey, but by the way, there's no way that this happened. You said your age subtly, and I'm like, there's no way in hell that's your age. Number one, but maybe talk a little bit more about your journey, because especially when something like a near-death experience is basically saying, listen, use your gift or get out of here, basically. How do we get to Kerry 2022 between a near-death experience and today? How do we get there?
I was raising my 3 sons by myself in Maine. My ex-husband had left suddenly, and I was very angry about that. I did not like that. I was very resentful. I was like, I knew that it was appropriate for my path, but I did not want that. I was angry. I did not want that path. I did not want to raise 3 children by myself, especially boys that were very athletic. And so this was in 2000, June 28th, 2000. They just came out. I knew I had to just let them walk out of the marriage, out of the life, and out of the life of the children. And then 2 years to the exact day, to the exact hour, I was in a car and rear-ended and then popped out of my body. And as an astrologer, I know dates, I know times, I know synchronicities. I've been counseling people for years. What's the date? What's the time? What's the significance? And this was not lost on me that, okay, I had to move on. I was literally rear-ended, and I knew I move on. You move that emotion on. If you're either going to come over here if you're so bitter and mad and the injustice of being a single parent, it's not what you want, or get over it and move on, right? That's what it is. And, you can't just keep, spending all your life force energy hating this person, resentful that it wasn't fair. So I'm like, okay, got the message. And so I had to figure out how to heal this broken body when I came, I was up in the accident, in the near-death experience. I was looking down at my body in my car, and I said, no, I'll go back down. I'll heal it. I'll heal it. And when I said that, I went back into the body, and that began a 10-year journey to get out of pain. It was very painful for 10 years, but I had to do it on the emotional plane. I tried everything. I tried other healers. I tried everybody else and their brother. Heal me, heal me, heal me. As a yoga teacher and an intuitive anyway, I knew I just go inward a little bit deeper. I didn't want to. I didn't want to do it myself. I was so reluctant. And then I'm like, okay, I'll go in and find and love myself. I had to do it with self-love and realize there's nothing wrong with me. It's not about, it's not about me that I got into this situation. It's part of my work. So I learned a lot. I learned that for me to get out of pain, I had to love myself at a really high degree because my nervous system was shot. It was an intense pain. And a brilliant doctor, a back doctor I went to, I'm like, can just do a back surgery for me? And he's like, tell me when you're out of pain. And I said, the only time I'm out of pain, and it's a fraction of a second, is when I'm loving. And he closed up his file, walked out of the room, and he said, if all of my patients knew that, I'd be out of business, and I'm not going to operate on you if you know that, ever. Of course, I went to a lot more doctors and they said the same thing, but all right. So I had to go deep into figuring out how to sustain that vibration of love longer and longer and longer. What I understood that it was, what we think of love is like a half a second. Oh, we love this person and then we move on, right? It's like an on-off switch. We go boop, boop. We don't learn. We're not taught how to sustain that vibration of love to last throughout the day at a high level. And I needed to figure out how to do that. So after 10 years, I was out of pain. And I remember the day I was in Seattle. I was like, yes, I got out of pain after 10 years. I did it. And then 20 days later, boom, I was in another accident in a wheelchair and I had to do it all over again, which gave me the opportunity to go even deeper into, I had a lot of time sitting again. And I'm like, okay, I have to start where I left off. Not only do I have to cultivate love, but I need a teacher of incredible proportions because this is no coincidence that I'm here. I know that I did it through love, but now I need the best teacher on the planet. And that's what I asked for. I said, and I screamed it to the universe, I need a teacher of the heart. And because the meme was going around that the heart is 100,000 times more powerful than the brain, right? And that kept going around. I'm like, I need that. I need power. How do I get that? How do I get that 100,000 times? If it's in me, I'm fine enough. So when I asked the universe, I got a teacher.
And I think the first thing I've learned so far is that if I want to heal, I got to go to Seattle, but be careful driving a car. That's what I heard. That's what I heard here so far. But all joking aside, one of the things that I think were the most powerful things you said so far, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more, and something that I think me and Pat have talked about, and Pat, I'd like you to elaborate if you want to. But for me, it's when we talk about healing, and like some of the patients or clients or whatever we want to call them come to you and say, help me, heal me. And I always say, I don't heal anyone. I don't save anyone. I give you tools, but I've never healed a human being in my life. I have trouble healing myself. And I remind people that healing doesn't come from others. It comes from oneself. And I don't know, Pat, if you want to elaborate on that, but wanted to throw that at you.
Exactly what Kerry has said, that we all come to eventually when you get out of treating symptoms and you want to actually treat the condition, the real underlying problem, cure it, is that we spend too much time in this whole world. If there's a matrix type of universe here, so we spend too much time in the head. And patients come to us with all the head stuff, is that this is fear, doubt, and insecurity are in the head. The connection to the universe, whatever it is, whatever it means to people, the higher power, the source, the epigenesis of the higher power is in the heart. The heart is everything. And I've learned personally, I've told every student I've had, because it was told to me, if you're not authentic, you'll not be effective. So don't put the bumper sticker on the car that says, take my advice, I'm not using it. I have yet to meet anybody in any of these helping professions that can't teach me something, and vice versa. And so it's at a time when I needed to go deeper into my own heart center. And I've done this with people, many, many people. It's what meditation is all about. It's what mindfulness is all about. It's to understand that our connection to self, big S self, and our connection to the universe comes through the heart. Fear only exists in this earth school. It's here as a teacher. Everything that is painful to us will stay with us until it's taught us all it can, and we move on. Kerry's life story there's a complete embodiment of that. What I see in her story as well, other than incredible gratitude that she's still with us, she chose to come back and be with us, selfishly for my part, but also for humanity. What I see is that she doesn't quit. That's what we teach people, Steve, you and I. You just don't quit. People in recovery, you just don't quit. You're the only person that can quit on you. And people come to us broken emotionally and spiritually because they've quit at times. And we say, you're back. You got a heartbeat. I say that all the time. If you've got a heartbeat, there's hope. What do you want? Are you willing to do something different now? And I'm willing to take my own advice, and I'm willing to stay curious. And so, as she did, but her story is a remarkable one, but it's the power of self-love, and which I get my channeled and my energy upgraded because of the guides and the people the beings with whom I've connected and still connect, as she has. You listen to this, they fill you. They will always fill you with as much as you need, the energy you need to fulfill yourself. And people like Kerry are extraordinary in their desire and need, that they see the bigger picture she has since she was literally a tiny girl, that she's seen that her mission here is to help others. And once you start focusing on taking care of yourself so you may help others, I think you're connected to the collective unconscious, whatever one, it doesn't matter what you call it. I like the collective is as good as anything, but everything is connected because we're all systems of energy, and it's finding that resonance. And she's become almost instantly an amazing teacher to me, because she has a little bit different perspective, which makes eminent sense if you're in this energy world, in the heart-centered world. So I'm thrilled to hear what she has to say and to see how others respond to this, because I think that the time has definitely come. And her teacher, the teacher that she found in Seattle, is an extraordinary teacher. So I'd like to hear a little more about that.
I don't even have to ask the question. Pat did. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just as surprised as you. I was not expecting an answer from the universe. I want a teacher. Energy follows intent. And I was very willful and intentful. And I was like, and I have been working since I'd been an astrologer for many, many years, I knew this, and so I was very clear. I don't know how. I don't care. Give me a teacher, right? You can do it any way you want, but I need a teacher to go deeper into this heart because I wanted to get up and I wanted to learn to walk again. And, I'll do whatever it takes. I need to get walking again. But they didn't think I could, and I knew I could. So I was surprised. I was sitting on the deck and overlooking the water. It was a beautiful night, just like what's behind Pat's background. And I'm like, man, I should share this with somebody. And boom, I got a very large consciousness on the inner planes. And I've been on the inner planes, as shamanic trained, leading shamanic retreats and yoga retreats internationally. I was not foreign to spending a lot of time on the inner planes. So I knew this voice was inside me and said, but it was louder and more resonant and huge, more than you could not mistake this, and said, you're never alone. And you just forgot. And so it began the conversation. Tears started flowing, and he showed me how I had forgotten so much of what I could do. And I guess evidently he forgot our friendship that we had many, 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 many years ago. And I'm coming back because I love you, and you forgot, and I'm here to remind you, and we have work to do. And it was very humbling. And thus began the journey. And I listened, and I have I just tried to record everything of our conversations for the next 3 years. I'm fine now. I'm completely healed. I walk, no problem, got me through that time. And what he taught was lessons on how to open your heart. We have 1,000 functions of the heart. And have you ever been taught any of those, 1,000 or plus functions? Do you know how to articulate it? Do you know where to go, how to calibrate it, how to use it, how to modulate it, how to listen, how to change it, so these are the teachings that I got from the whale. And I've been very struggling the last 2 years. I mean, I certainly do it in my one-on-one for people that are ready. I just bring in the whales. I'm like, okay, if they're ready, they're open. Hey, let's you directly ask whatever your questions want to the whales. Or I teach it in classes where people are like, okay, I want to connect with them too. And then we work slowly over periods of time and connect with the whale because their perspective is vast. It's from a heart-based perspective. And when they talk to you, they open your heart. You begin to feel it. They demonstrate it. They work with you, and they're like, oh, you begin to feel a bigger heart resonance. And this is why they're teachers, because they can amplify your heart so you can understand the teaching that they're teaching you.
So one of the things that I would say, first of all, is I find that fascinating personally. I'm a person who's learning to not run compulsively from one end to another in my own life. I think that people think that love and the opposite is hate. No, it's indifference. Hate is part of love in some ways. And one of the things that I also did in my life is I ran from religion to just science. And now I find myself to find a balance between the two. How would you explain a little bit of the heart and the whale? The whale has the biggest heart in the world, just for the record. How do we get someone who might be more of a scientific, like, wait a minute, this is too woo-woo for me, to understand the connection between the heart of the whale and the whales and what they can teach you to what we know for our own hearts?
A lot of people come to my introductory meditation that I've been doing online, and they're like, okay, just observe. I'll bring in the whales.
Good point.
We'll talk, and you decide yourself. Sometimes usually the first time, people go, I think I did. I really felt my heart in a bigger way. Second time, oh, I got it. Third time, okay, let's go. Let's start learning. That's been my experience when people who have had the desire, they are universal frequency finders. They're multidimensional beings. So they will find your frequency hands down, and they will hit it, and they will, and you can deny it if you're still in your head, but if in your heart,
right,
there's no mistake.
Well, that's a great way to explain it. I appreciate that. And is that a little bit of the concept of hearting that you were talking about?
I'm so grateful that I am not in pain. I mean, I was 18 years and I'm out of pain in a daily way, after those 2 accidents. And so, I was so grateful. And I said, Herman, how can I thank you for all of this information? And he said, I have an idea. Let's bring the concept of hearting to each and every person. Because I think if you teach that to the world, we can change this world so quickly and so powerfully. And I'm like, okay, how do I do that? He's like, any way you want. Introduce the concept of hearting. Everyone will get it. But to begin it, just have them replace anytime they were going to say the word thinking or feeling, replace it with the word hearting, because it activates the heart. I mean, from a linguistic point of view, gets you back, it immediately gets you in the heart. And people, when you talk, if I came up to you on the street and I said, Steve, I was just hearting about you yesterday. That's really different than if I said I was thinking about you. You receive it differently. You receive the heart energy. You know that it was a warm, loving thought that I had. So I am trying to answer Herman's call by giving the word hearting and making it everywhere. Everyone can use it.
Well, hopefully I'm doing my part here to help get it out.
Absolutely.
But I do believe that that's a great way to put it. I never really thought about it that way, but I love that concept. I truly appreciate that. I talked to Pat, which is really rare. Usually Pat just takes over my podcast. I go for a coffee, grab water, but he's not very quiet right now. So I'm like, I'm hoping Pat's okay. Pat, what are your thoughts on all this? Because I think that you're not someone who does not have an opinion, and I appreciate that because that's what connects us also. So I want to hear more from you on this point.
I was thinking a lot of things, but mostly hearting. It's because the language that Herman, with the whale grace, carry with this new vernacular is so unbelievably a paradigm change. It's another way for me to learn about myself and to communicate with others around this. So I absolutely love it. It's also, when I watch someone who is so full of that spirit and that energy, you get caught up in it. We know the Buddha said that one learners already teaches appear. And most of our pain is our greatest teacher. I was a pain management specialist in a general hospital, addiction specialist and the psych specialist on that team. And more, I was also paired with a director of medicine who was a doctor of DNP, a doctor of nurse practitioning, whose doctoral thesis was in the heart, the consciousness of the heart. So there were many 6:00 at night conversations in her office talking about all of this and the heart in medicine. It's an organ that you can take out of someone in Seattle and fly it across the country in ice and stick it into someone literally in Boston and zap it, and that sustains them for 25 more years. The difference is, which I've spoken to before, is that they're different. They have somebody else's heart. And this is a way without a transplant. We're getting here a consciousness transplant. She got it from Herman. It's tapping into that wisdom, and we're all seeking wisdom. So when I'm sitting here being a part of this conversation, I got her book, a children's book, Hearting with Herman. Isn't that perfect?
Yeah.
Start with the kids. That's the future. And it'll make sense to kids because the spirit is so strong with them. They're surrounded by their guides and their angelic beings. And then they'll start teaching. Children teach us now anyway. Many an oncologist will take the fearful adults and take them down to the pediatric ward and let the little Buddhas on that ward to calm them and teach them how to be with an illness. Kerry talks about how she was with her illness, which was a spinal cord injury, which, when you say that, people flinch because the prognosis is often in Western medicine not so good. And what her story is that it wasn't a mechanical cure. It was a heart cure. It was we know so little about the central nervous system anyway, maybe 15% of how it actually works. But what it is I believe, is a receiver, if you will, for all of this energy. I remember building a crystal radio as a kid where I took a crystal and touched it, and I got WBZ, as I recall. All these things are like spinal cords and all of that, in many cases, as a receiver for the universal energy, for the quantum energy. And so I know a little bit more about her story, obviously, than your listeners do, but she's a quantum healer. And frankly, I would love to hear more about that, because since we've connected in person or whatever, it's all I'm hungry for more about that, because I was going to be a physicist, and the quantum universe makes complete sense to me physically, but it also lent itself to my understanding of where we came from and what I took away from my near-death experience and being on the other side. So I'd like to hear more from the quantum healing experience, Kerry.
I really feel like we're like co-hosting this, and Kerry's our guest.
I'm just curious. I'm here as a learner. I'm not here as any kind of an expert. Yeah.
But I just thought it's funny because that question is perfect. So, Kerry, I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to go for coffee again. I'll go be back.
Yeah, we're the morning people, Steve. You can.
I'm not the morning person. That's for sure. But yes, I'd like to hear more about it. Kerry, you want to expand a little bit on that idea of quantum? Why am I blanking right now?
Healing.
Thank you.
Yeah, quantum. It's all with frequency.
I will go get a coffee after the interview, though.
Sure. Frequency is the new frontier, and how do we teach it? And then the first thing to understand frequency. Why don't we just frequency 101 is the heart. Let's just understand your heart, how it's beating, how you can discern it, and you can articulate what resonance. You got to get a dial and go, okay, what frequency do I want to experience life today on? Okay, this is advanced. I mean, I'm just taking all of the many courses that I'm about to teach and giving you the advanced kind of nuggets about why we're going through all of these steps to articulate the heart, discern what its frequency. So you can decide, you can feel, oh my gosh, I feel so much better when I'm in a state of gratitude, but how do I stay there? What are the techniques? Where are the muscles? How do I get there? Right. So there's a lot of building. So anyway, frequency, understanding our own frequency is the next frontier for healing. And pretty soon we're not going to go to doctors. We're not going to need the pharmaceuticals. If I can teach you how to dial your own frequency, right? You're going to go, oh, I don't want to experience that. I want to, you will become a master at that. So anyway, the quantum field, everyone knows, it's just picking up on Einstein's theory. And he just is the one this is old. This isn't new. The quantum field is where we can go and understand our thoughts are instant, right? Time, we're not bound by time. There's so many places I could go with teaching this. And I really am challenged to teach in the way, I want to teach. What I like is that Herman was a master teacher, right? And he showed me ways to teach this advanced concept. Very simply, he said, I'm going to teach you so a 6-year-old can understand these concepts in quantum healing. That's why I began with the children's book. And then I'm going to go to the advanced, because it can be boiled down to what's in that book, Harding with Herman. It's that simple. But, energy follows intent. You can experience, if your intent is strong, you can, go to the power of your intent. And so there's a great example in that book, which is exactly how his first lesson for me is Harding with Herman. It's exactly what he took me through. I felt like a little girl and this huge, enormous thing. And he said, all right, I'm going to teach you, get in my heart. And I went, what? Get in my heart. He said it was so loud. And I'm like, oh, and boom, I was in the heart of a whale. And he's like, okay, feel my heartbeat, feel it. You couldn't not feel it. It was enormous. Like my whole body was vibrating. Boom, 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 boom. And he was like, yeah, okay. match yours to that. I'm like, okay. And I did. And I was like, whew, whew. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is merging. And I could feel so much self-love. He had so much love for me. And he's like, you can do this. You just forgot. Right. And so this isn't, I'm just amplifying it for you. Right. So anyway, this is how you understand the frequency healing. But, there's a lot of, the question that you asked was, what is frequency healing? So it can be sound, it can be light, it can be intent, right? You're working with the quantum field. It's not limited so for instance, here's an example to ground that. Herman said, I'm going to help you teach people understand their frequency, but I could do this with intent, but people aren't ready for that. The power of their intent can heal. Like if I to directly go to with heart resonance, dialing your heart. We need steps to take people to understand these concepts. So he said, you're going to find an app, right? You're going to find an app that's going to help people understand frequency. And I, as a heart, will amplify it through my intent, through your work. We together are going to help people amplify their frequency. I was like, okay. For 2 years, I looked for this app. I didn't find it. I finally found it in 2018. It was like a long search. And now I have this app, and I contacted the developer. I'm like, I know what to do with this. I got directions. So I write a software that puts the actual numerical frequency into the app. So with your voice, I use voice spectral analysis. I capture your 15 seconds of your voice. It changes your voice into hertz frequencies. And then I can help you identify what's off through this app. This is quantum technology, because your voice is telling you exactly. I hope I'm not going too fast or leaving out huge paragraphs. And I apologize if I am, because it's a lot of information. But basically, your voice is telling you what you need, what would balance you. And if we can kind of take that into the, break it down into frequency, we can play that frequency to help you heal much quicker, almost instantly. These are higher ways of healing our body, and we need them now, right? We need quick ways, quantum technologies. And that's why we need to connect to our planetary elders. We need to understand the concept that a lot of the consciousness of the different animals and the plants, they have information for us that they're just waiting for us to get off this idea that they're not here as part of our team.
Well, I think that one thing that I would say, first of all, is that I think I followed you. So that's the good news. And for those who didn't follow you, they can go and reach you and talk to you. Because I think it's all important stuff, frankly. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And the other thing too,
Thank you.
is you mentioned the app, but you didn't say the name of the app.
The Genius Insight Health app. You can buy it on your own and go for it, or you can make an appointment for me and I can teach you, or you could just say, Harry, just give me a couple sessions and clean my energetic frequency. I do this all the time. People go, oh my gosh, I had no idea this was in my field. Hanging out.
And Genius, I missed it.
You can go and download a free trial of it on my website, kerrykeegan.com, or connect me and I'll send you, if you have an iPhone or Android, free. You don't even have to put your credit card in there, and you can try it yourself. That, for 2 weeks, no questions asked. And it's a deep dive. It's not an easy thing to learn. And that's why you might want someone, have someone show you who's been using it for 4 or 5 years, how they do it.
I recommend that personally.
Okay.
And I've done that. She's helped me.
Hi, I'm just taking a quick break of this interview to let you know that I've truly enjoyed doing 60 plus episodes of Finding Your Way Through Therapy. And I just want to remind you that when we're doing these podcasts, it's a labor of love. And what I mean by that is that there's not much revenue. It takes time, it takes money, and you need to distribute it and things like that. So one of the things that I was hoping to talk to you about is being able to help me out. You can always give a review, which is always beneficial. But more than that, I really want you to go to buymeacoffee.com/Steve Bissell. And the reason why I wanted you to go there is that you can give a donation of any kind to support this podcast that you hopefully have gotten a lot from. And any type of amount will be beneficial for me. And I just want to make sure that you can support me by doing so. And let's get back to the interview.
It fits everything that I knew from studying quantum mechanics. So it's, I've said many a time I'd be a physicist if it wasn't for advanced calculus. It just left me flummoxed. And I wasn't supposed to be a physicist, but now this all makes sense. Often the universe distracting and screaming at us. And our job is to vibrate at a higher and higher and higher frequency. The beings that guide us are vibrating at a very high frequency, which is why it's hard for them to transpose that into something we can experience here. And it's kind of the magic here is that we leave that to come into the Earth School and forget everything. We don't forget it. It's just put in places that we need to discover again. And we have to get quiet to do that. And we have to get centered. We almost always need someone who's been there first. It's what you and I teach, Steve, is that if you've been someplace before, if you've been in the pit, you know how to get out of it and you can help someone else out. Well, in this case here is that the pit is the ignorance. We have a world that is in its head and with narcissism and self-absorption, solipsism, and all of that. And the ills of that are apparent everywhere we look. People say to me all the time, what has happened? What has happened? Why is it like this? It's because the head has taken over in capitalism and everything, and the heart is being discounted. Well, if we want a solution, it's not going to come from something in a hedge fund. It's going to come from something in a heart fund. What, like that? And this is the entrance to that. And this is not easy to understand because you have to remain curious and patient. But everything that is really worthwhile that I've ever attained has been because I had great teachers and they didn't quit. So I would recommend, and this is not a paid endorsement at all, I would certainly recommend if you're curious at all about this, allow her to guide you. Because and I'm pretty well trained in that, and it was a deep dive, and it's only slowly that it started to really resonate with me. And I've been above frequencies for a long time now, since I had illness and was trapped on a couch, immobile with a computer on my lap. These are the moments when the forced meditative moments, the forced retreats. And so I would certainly recommend allowing her to guide you. She really is terrific at it. She's been there. This is not an intellectual process. This is a mission. This is her heart-centered mission. And that gives her, I think, the articulation power to help anybody who is remotely curious.
Well, I think I go back to something that I think we've said in every episode, Pat, is that you can't solve the problem that the same mind created.
No, that's Einstein again.
And I think that I go back to that because I think that if you even think about the job, lumberjacks came to mind for me. You don't just go, here's a chainsaw, go ahead, you're fine. No, you got to learn a technique. You got to have someone who mentors you through the process. And part of this, you need the mentor in the process in order to get there. Mm-hmm. That's part of what we do as therapists. That's certainly what I do as a coach, everything that I do. So I think that it is absolutely yes, for me, I'll be very honest. I don't really know you, Kerry. We just met, but I endorse someone having you guide through this stuff because you're not going to solve it if you don't have someone guiding you through the learning process. Mm-hmm. So you said you're not a paid advertisement. I certainly am not either, but I'm certainly endorsing the fact that we all need to guide like that. And I go back to another thing that I really feel when you're talking about all this, Kerry, and it's that whole mind, body, spirit connection, and how Buddha also talks about how everything is connected. Or you don't kill a bug because that's a life form that we need. and you're careful as what you do, because everything that you do, even a step on the grass, has an effect on the world. So I go back to a little bit of that too. The other thing that I wanted to mention, because we were talking about this a little bit off air, emotional coherence. I have trouble even saying it, so that's how incoherent I am. But I'd love to hear more about that.
I think it's our power. It's where it's our high water mark now as healers, as anybody, is to be able to discern our emotion. What's mine? What isn't? This skill right here is enormous for a lot of people right now, right? Is that what is mine and what is the effects of my cat, my family, my show that I watched, or the frequencies that are coming through my phone. We weren't taught how to go, okay, where is articulate your emotional fabric. And this is subtle. How do you know that thought, these thoughts are our own, these lingering emotions aren't from, that we're picking up because of empathy. We're emotional beings. Thoughts are electric and emotions are magnetic. And so we're walking through this, electromagnetic field, and we're picking things up as a magnet. Okay, let's give you tools to go, okay, just like turn everything off and just get to you, right? How do you clean that? So now you know what's yours. This is going to be mind blowing. Not only does it give you incredible life force when you have the life force to heal your body. But I think this is step number one. Okay, what's mine, right? And you can look at it from a physical point of view, an emotional, mental, or spiritual point of view. And frankly, I like to look at it the quickest way to move my emotion back into a state of coherence. And to me, that's sound. Okay, if I'm off, I feel slimed by a situation. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go run my app, clean myself with the exact frequencies that are going to move it out of my field.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'm like, and then I'm back in my lane. I'm not carrying anybody else's stuff. And we've never been taught this. And it drains us. It drains us not understanding where our emotional self is. Because we can typically, we came in here with the tools to deal with your emotional stuff, but not everybody else's, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this discernment that is critical, because if we can get everybody fired up about their own life force and that's all they're doing, the world will be a great place to live.
Kerry just gave us an incredible nugget, which she said she was going to. Thoughts are electric, emotions are magnetic. And since I had all my health challenges, I was introduced to the frequencies, the solfeggio frequencies and others, and those heal. I heal every night. I have my frequency bath every single night. I think that so much of what drives us is not as much thought as it is emotion. The passions that can go sideways and can be turned into mania and other things, from a clinical standpoint. But also, as we see around us, is the thoughts. You can turn thoughts and then they become something else. And they then can drive the emotional magnetism, if you will. That's what crowd psychology is all about. And as I think I've said before, probably even here, Steve, is that, as Voltaire said, if you can get them to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities. That's the dark side of the force, if you will, of these passions. And healers like Kerry are trying to teach. And I think you and I do it as well, in a less coherent way. Of course, I'm learning rapidly here as I listen to my friend. And we steal all our good material, don't we? And it's our job. Yeah, that's research. My mentor said that's research. Is that? Yeah, that's right. And it's. I am here to try to assist people to do exactly what Kerry is trying to do, as are you, is to learn how to heal yourself. And it starts with the frequency of the heart is indeed the place that we talk about the range of emotion. Emotion is not a head thing, it's a heart thing. And the love is the most powerful emotion there is. It is, I think, the dark energy. Love is what runs everything. You can find another word for it. That's my word. And it's a heart-centered thing. And so finally, as she was talking, I was actually aware of this sense of Hermanness. It's really amazing, is that I know that I have been taught that my voice carries a certain amount of power to it. And it's just one of the things. But if you're tuning your frequencies, I think you're going to be better for yourself. You'll be better for those around you. And the communication you have is less harsh. It doesn't vibrate people into misaction, if you will, that is not helpful to them. So this attunement of energy and frequency is key to everything. But I'm going to say it one more time. Thoughts are electric. Emotions are magnetic. I love that. Yeah.
I wrote that down. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Right. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, Kerry, and, obviously I'm not very well versed, so obviously I apologize for that. But you're talking about, getting the frequency and the sounds. For me, sound can be sometimes a little harsh. And for me, it's like visual stuff, like even looking at Pat's background right now. I was out in Newport recently and out looking at the ocean. And to me, sometimes the visual is sometimes what brings me back to the frequency of my emotions and my heart and everything else. Can it be other senses, or is it mostly sound?
No, there's a million senses it could be. For me, it's sound, and that's probably why I do that. I'm very much auditory, and not really. No, we have, you know, a control panel that's got many, many knobs with lots of calibrations on each knob, and we get to decide, and we have control. There's so much we can choose to fractal into an area to develop our system to whatever question we ask. This is very quantum. The answer is given at the precise moment you ask the question. So get really good at answering questions, asking questions, so that and then listen for how that response. It might be a visual. How do I do this? That it's always talking to you. There's always a communication with this universal intelligence. How do you do that? Well, you got to be in your heart. You can't be in your head. So if we could just get you into your heart, we can get you really fired up and opening yourself up. I just wanted to say one thing that I thought children get it. When I had a student, a troubled teen, and working with them, and I'm like, okay, she just wanted to work directly with Herman. And I'm like, great. Every session, if they're open, I just let Herman come in and give her exactly what she needed to feel loved and not suicidal. Gave her, the imagery and the feeling sense. She left knowing she connected with a whale. And actually, I normally wear the bracelet she gave me. They can feel this. Like when I bring the presence in, I merge with this presence, they can really feel it. And do feel that they're not alone and they're part of a unity consciousness field. So I know we're talking a lot about concepts, but people, couple steps in, they can begin to feel they're not alone. They can feel this presence, these teachers. And then I want them to, you contact Herman anytime you want. And so many, many people do. That's my approach. These are beings that are here for you.
When I go back at the concept of Reiki that me and Pat have talked about, and how that energy can be flowed everywhere else, and learning that energy, I don't know, I don't see the sun warming the earth, but I feel it. And to me, talking about that energy and that feeling and everything else that you just said is like, you don't need to see it sometimes to believe it. And I remind people that not everything is palpable. And I think that that's always a good way to think about those things.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
So the one last thing that I really want to ask you is that, we're working on, again, this is what happens with Pat in general. We're almost at the hour mark already. I try to keep it to about an hour. But these are all the concepts that I really buy into, obviously, as you probably can tell. But how can others open their hearts and heal more properly around this stuff? Not properly, I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I mean.
Well, I'll take a shot at the preamble to what Kerry will probably speak to. What we teach, and it's no coincidence that virtually all of the hundreds now of mutual self-help groups that have spun off of the original concept, that a meditation is part of it. Meditation, which is to focus on the heartbeat, the breath, and literally controlling. You can control your heartbeat with your breath. There are yogis that can slow their heart down to about 5 beats a minute. I control my blood pressure with, I had some high blood pressure, which was situational, environmental, and I control it with breathing, breath technique. So I always start people with meditation. They say, well, I don't know how to meditate. And right when I was working live, and I still do it online, is that, okay, we're going to do it right now. So or people that come in and they want to process traffic for 20 minutes. Let's just start breathing. We don't want to waste this precious sacred time talking about traffic, because traffic, you were part of traffic. You were part of it, the problem out there. So let's just breathe it away. And I think that's where you start. If you're going to have some kind of enlightenment, I believe that you have to get calm. I could deal with crisis all of the time in clinical setting and emergency room setting because I'm the calmest individual in there. Kerry and I used to work in a restaurant business years ago, and we talked about some of the situations there, with the crazy situations. And when you're trained in that, you realize that the person that is all upset is bringing the energy. I need to bring the calmness. Calmness is curative. And Herman is nothing. His consciousness is nothing if it isn't calming. And that allows, the world screams at us, the universe whispers. We have to get calm and in that resonance. And I think that this type of approach that Kerry teaches, that it was taught to her at a moment of despair, that's, I think, what the universe responds to is that when you're heartfelt in your despair, I want to not be this way. Help me. That's the petition. That's the cry for help. I get emotional when I think about it because it's a hard thing. And I've said many a time in my public speaking and all kinds, is that I don't apologize for these emotions. I work my butt off for these for the last 36 years. And with a lot of wonderful, wonderful, loving helpers along the way, teachers. And so I'd say meditate. Learn how to meditate, because it will find you. Whatever you're looking for will find you there. But that's the place I think is the best place to look for it.
I'm right there with you about fighting for my emotions all these years. I no longer apologize for having them. Kerry, how about Pat was eloquent, so hey, step it up.
Well, okay, let's do it. Close your eyes. Relax your face. Relax your shoulders down. Relax the back of your throat. Slowly take the most delicious inhale through your nose. The most succulent, delicious, life-affirming, life-enhancing breath right down into your heart. And feel it grow. Feel it. Feel it amplify. Feel it relax you. And just connect all the way down to the central core of the earth for infinite life, source energy. You are loved. Always. So it doesn't take long at all. I know you're at the hour. I just wanted to let you know it's just a couple of breaths and you're there in your heart, setting your tone for the day.
Well, I just want to mention, please don't do that while you're driving. That's all I'm going to say. Because people listen to this podcast. I get a lot of like, hey, I listen to you when I'm driving. Please don't do it while driving. Just giving you that disclosure right now. But
I will just say thank you, my dear friend.
And I can't tell you how I felt that. So I really appreciate that. And certainly for a non-morning person, this kind of give me the energy. Should have started with that maybe. So I appreciate that. Thank you. As we're kind of wrapping up, Kerry, how do we reach you? How do we get in touch with you? Because I think it's very important to share that, especially you talked about the app, but especially with your website and other ways to get to you.
Yes, I'll be putting some classes online. KerryKeegan.com is my website. You can make individual appointments with me or sign up for some classes that I have starting if you want to take a deep dive in articulating your heart. And yes, or start with a book. You want to start with a children's book too.
What's the title again? Where can we get it?
Hearting with Herman. And you can get it on Audible, Amazon, or any place that you get your books. And the audiobook, I just want to say, is fantastic. And there's a free song that goes with it to keep you singing and your kids singing with you about you and connecting with your heart and Herman.
Thank you very much, Kerry, for that. And I can't tell you how happy I am that you joined us. This was a great hour. Pat, I know people know how to reach you, but still repeat it because I like to have that available for everyone.
I think the best way for people to reach me is you put connections on there. So it's they can reach me from the sites, all of the podcasts, and this one I'm sure too. I'm available. So yeah,
all this will be in the show notes. So how to reach Kerry, her book, how to reach Pat, and I give you Kerry. I did not know you until today, and there's something about connecting with someone that's just so powerful. And I want to thank you for that because I really felt the connection to you, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored to be here with you both.
And Pat, as usual, I'll see you on Monday in a couple of weeks.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And I'll see you soon, Kerry.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes episode 66 of Finding Your Way Through Therapy. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Kerry. I think that we're kind of like heading to season 7 and talking again because that was such a great conversation. Episode 67 will be me talking about a chapter in my book called Look Up to the Spirit in Your Life. And the reason why I want to talk about that is for several reasons. I think that it's important to kind of like talk about spirituality in general, as you probably have figured out in the last 66 or so episodes. But I also thought that it might be interesting for you guys to know a little bit about my book so that way you can go and check it out. Please like, subscribe, or follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for information, educational, and entertainment purposes. If you are struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor or therapist for consultation.